The cemetery stood in solemn silence, its gravestones weathered and ancient, bearing witness to the passage of time. It was a place of both remembrance and mourning, where the living paid their respects to the departed. But beneath its serene facade lay a darkness that few dared to acknowledge. James Cutter, a retired groundskeeper with a penchant for solitude, arrived at the cemetery on a cold autumn morning. He had been hired as the new caretaker, responsible for tending to the grounds and ensuring that the resting place remained peaceful and well-kept. As he walked among the tombstones, he couldn't help but feel an inexplicable sense of unease, as though the very earth beneath him held secrets that were best left undisturbed. In the stillness of the night, James heard faint whispers that seemed to rise from the very soil of the cemetery. At first, he dismissed them as the rustling of leaves or the echoes of distant voices. But the whispers persisted, growing louder and more distinct. They were like fragmented memories, fragments of conversations and laments from the departed souls that called the cemetery home. One afternoon, as James tended to the graves, he stumbled upon an old, weather-beaten headstone hidden among the overgrown weeds. The inscription had faded with time, but he managed to decipher the name, Emily White. Intrigued by the forgotten grave, James decided to learn more about Emily's story. He embarked on a journey into the town's history, uncovering a tragic tale of love and loss that had plagued the White family for generations. As James delved deeper into Emily's story, he began to experience haunting visions. He would see glimpses of a young woman in a tattered white dress, her eyes filled with sorrow and despair. She appeared to be reaching out to him, her spectral form beckoning him closer. These visions left James shaken, and he couldn't escape the feeling that Emily's restless spirit sought something from him. During his research, James discovered a diary that had once belonged to Emily White. It contained cryptic entries detailing her dreams of a forbidden love and the tragic circumstances that had led to her untimely death. As he read the diary, James felt a growing connection to Emily's story. He sensed that she had left behind clues that could unlock the secrets of the cemetery and the restless spirits that dwelled within. With the diary in hand, James continued to explore the cemetery, guided by the cryptic entries. He began to experience increasingly unearthly events, gravestones shifting on their own, eerie lights flickering in the night, and ghostly figures that seemed to materialize among the tombstones. The restless spirits appeared to be growing more agitated, their presence a palpable force that enveloped the cemetery. As James delved deeper into the cemetery's history, he realized that a malevolent force had taken root among the graves. It was this force that was responsible for the increasingly sinister events. Emily's diary hinted at a dark ritual performed by her family, a ritual that had inadvertently bound their souls to the cemetery. The malevolent force sought to consume all who dared to uncover its secrets. James, driven by a sense of responsibility and empathy for the restless spirits, resolved to uncover the truth behind the dark ritual. He gathered the fragments of Emily's diary and consulted with local historians, piecing together the details of the ceremony that had cursed the cemetery. He learned of an ancient artifact, the Key of Desolation, which was said to be the source of the malevolent force's power. With the help of his newfound knowledge, James embarked on a perilous journey to locate the artifact and break the curse. The quest for the Key of Desolation led James to a series of forgotten catacombs hidden beneath the cemetery. As he ventured deeper into the dark, winding tunnels, he encountered traps, puzzles, and malevolent spirits that guarded the artifact. His determination and resourcefulness were tested to the limit as he faced each obstacle in his path. The malevolent force fought fiercely to protect the key, sensing that its ultimate defeat was at hand. As James delved deeper into the catacombs, he encountered the guardian of the Key of Desolation, an otherworldly entity that appeared as a spectral figure clad in tattered robes. Its eyes burned with an otherworldly intensity, and its voice echoed like distant thunder. The guardian warned James of the consequences of his pursuit, explaining that the key held the power not only to break the curse, but also to unleash unspeakable horrors. It offered him a choice: to abandon his quest or to continue at his own peril. Despite the Guardian's dire warning, James's resolve remained unshaken. He believed that breaking the curse was the only way to grant peace to the restless spirits and to uncover the full truth behind Emily White's tragic fate. With newfound determination, he confronted the Guardian, engaging in a battle of wits and wills as he attempted to outmaneuver the enigmatic entity and claim the key of desolation for himself. As James triumphed over the Guardian and seized the key of desolation, a chilling realization washed over him. The artifact held ancient knowledge, but it came at a heavy price. It bore the weight of countless souls, their suffering etched into its very essence. The malevolent force within the cemetery surged with newfound intensity, sensing the loss of its source of power. It vowed vengeance upon James, for he had disrupted the delicate balance of the curse. Armed with the key of desolation and the knowledge contained within it, James returned to the cemetery. He conducted a binding ritual, intending to harness the power of the key to break the curse and release the tormented souls. As he chanted incantations passed down through generations, the very earth beneath him trembled. A swirling vortex of spectral energy formed around him, and the restless spirits within the cemetery began to emerge, their forms ethereal and mournful. As the ritual neared its climax, the malevolent force unleashed its wrath. It manifested as a towering, grotesque specter, its form a twisted reflection of the countless souls it had consumed. The malevolent force sought to reclaim the power of the key of desolation, believing that it could not be imprisoned forever. It attacked James, determined to prevent the curse from being broken. In a climactic surge of power, James used the key of desolation to shatter the curse that had plagued the cemetery for generations. A blinding burst of light radiated from the artifact, engulfing the malevolent force and causing it to let out a deafening, agonized scream. The curse dissipated, freeing the tormented souls and allowing them to find their long-awaited peace. The cemetery, once a place of darkness, was bathed in a warm, tranquil light. As the curse was shattered, the restless spirits within the cemetery ascended, their forms fading into the afterlife. James watched with a mixture of relief and sorrow as Emily White's spectral figure smiled at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. The cemetery, once haunted by malevolence, became a place of serenity and solace. The townsfolk returned to honor their loved ones without fear, and the cemetery's reputation began to change. With the curse shattered, the cemetery embraced tranquil days and nights. James Cutter continued to serve as the caretaker, tending to the graves with a sense of fulfillment he had never known before. The townsfolk, once hesitant to visit, returned to the cemetery to honor their ancestors and loved ones. James, however, couldn't shake the feeling that the key of desolation held more secrets than he had initially realized. It had brought salvation to the restless spirits, but its true purpose remained shrouded in mystery. As James delved deeper into the history of the key of desolation, he uncovered a series of cryptic texts that hinted at its enigmatic origins. The artifact was said to have been forged in an ancient, long-forgotten civilization, imbued with both immense power and profound suffering. These texts hinted at a hidden purpose for the key, one that extended beyond the breaking of curses. James was determined to unlock the secrets of the artifact and understand its role in the greater supernatural world. Despite the newfound peace within the cemetery, the lingering presence still haunted James. He continued to have visions of Emily White, who now seemed to be trying to communicate with him rather than seeking help. Emily's spectral visits were filled with urgency, and James struggled to comprehend the message she was trying to convey. He knew that she held the key to the true purpose of the key of desolation. Emily's visions led James to a long-forgotten section of the cemetery, where an unmarked grave lay hidden among the shadows. It was there that he discovered Emily's own resting place, an unassuming mound of earth. The revelation sent shockwaves through James, for it meant that Emily had never been properly laid to rest. Her unfinished business was intricately tied to the key of desolation, and it was this unfinished business that had kept her spirit tethered to the world of the living. While exploring the unmarked grave, James found an enigmatic symbol etched into the headstone, a symbol that mirrored those he had seen in the texts related to the key of desolation. It became clear that Emily had been connected to the artifact in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. Determined to free Emily's spirit and uncover the key's true purpose, James initiated a new quest, one that would take him deeper into the world of the supernatural than he had ever ventured before. In his search for answers, James sought the guidance of an enigmatic occult scholar named Professor Lucius Blackwood. Blackwood was known for his expertise in ancient artifacts and their ties to the supernatural. The professor listened intently as James recounted his experiences with the key of desolation and Emily's haunting presence. Blackwood's eyes gleamed with fascination, and he agreed to assist James in unlocking the artifact's mysteries. Together, James and Professor Blackwood embarked on a journey to discover the origins and purpose of the key of desolation. Their quest led them to a hidden chamber beneath the cemetery, a place where the ancient texts had hinted the answers could be found. The chamber was filled with ancient tomes, artifacts, and symbols that dated back centuries. As they delved deeper into the chamber's secrets, they realized that the key was a part of a larger, enigmatic puzzle. Within the chamber, James and Professor Blackwood discovered a series of cryptic riddles and puzzles that seemed to guard the key of desolation's true purpose. Each riddle was more intricate and perplexing than the last, and it became clear that they were meant to test the seeker's wit and determination. As they solved the riddles one by one, James and the professor grew closer to uncovering the ancient secret that had bound Emily to the key. After weeks of tireless efforts, James and Professor Blackwood finally unraveled the final riddle. It led them to a hidden alcove where the key of desolation lay, encased in a protective barrier that had concealed it for centuries. With bated breath, they broke the barrier and grasped the artifact. As James held the key, a flood of memories and knowledge washed over him, revealing its true purpose. The key of desolation, they discovered, was not just a tool for breaking curses. It was a guardian of souls. Forged in the ancient civilization, its purpose was to guide and protect spirits who had unfinished business in the realm of the living. Emily White had been chosen as the guardian's conduit, her connection to the key binding her to the role of guiding and aiding the souls of the departed. The malevolent force had twisted this purpose, causing suffering instead of solace. Armed with this newfound knowledge, James and Professor Blackwood returned to the cemetery, prepared to confront the malevolent force once more. They believed that understanding the key's true purpose would give them the upper hand in the battle to free Emily and break the malevolent entity's hold over the cemetery. As they initiated a ritual to harness the key's guardian abilities, the malevolent force surged forth, enraged and determined to maintain its grip on the spirits. In the midst of the confrontation, Emily's spectral form appeared before James and Professor Blackwood. With a profound understanding of the key's purpose, she reached out and embraced the artifact, channeling its power. The key of desolation radiated with ethereal light, and the guardian abilities it possessed were unleashed in all their glory. Spectral chains formed around the malevolent force, binding it and weakening its power. The cemetery's restless spirits, now guided by the key, joined their efforts, overwhelming the malevolent entity with their collective strength. Robert Trent had worked as a security guard at Oakwood Supermarket for years, and the night shift had become a routine part of his life. The empty aisles and flickering fluorescent lights were familiar companions during those lonely hours. On one particularly cold and rainy night, as Robert settled into his chair near the store's entrance, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The supermarket's silence was broken only by the distant sound of rain tapping against the windows. As the hours passed, Robert began to sense an unusual presence lurking in the shadows. His years of security work had honed his instincts, and he knew when something was amiss. He checked the surveillance cameras, expecting to catch a glimpse of a trespasser or a shoplifter, but the screen showed nothing out of the ordinary. Still, the feeling of being watched persisted. Strange occurrences soon followed. The automatic doors swung open and closed without cause. Cans of soup rolled off shelves, and eerie whispers echoed through the empty aisles. Robert's unease deepened as he realized that these events defied rational explanation. The whispers seemed to carry messages, though he couldn't quite make out their meaning. He chalked it up to stress and fatigue, but deep down, he knew there was something more sinister at play. One night, Robert discovered something disturbing. In the far corner of the supermarket, hidden behind a stack of pallets, he stumbled upon a circle drawn in red chalk on the floor. Inside the circle lay scattered remnants of candles and strange symbols he couldn't decipher. It was as if someone had conducted a mysterious ritual within the supermarket, leaving behind a lingering malevolence. Determined to get to the bottom of the strange occurrences, Robert began investigating the ritual's origins. He scoured the supermarket's records, searching for any information that might shed light on who had conducted the ritual and why. He also reached out to a local historian who had a reputation for delving into the town's hidden history. Robert knew that uncovering the truth was the only way to put an end to the unsettling events in the supermarket. The historian, Professor Evelyn Blake, arrived at Oakwood Supermarket with a wealth of knowledge about the town's past. She explained to Robert that the town had a dark history, including tales of witch trials and arcane rituals. According to Professor Blake, the supermarket was built upon land that had once been a site for such rituals, and the circle Robert had discovered was a remnant of those practices. She warned that ancient malevolent forces might have been awakened by his intrusion. Robert and Professor Blake began to unravel the secrets of the malevolent entity that had been summoned by the ritual. It had lain dormant for centuries, bound by a powerful enchantment that had now been disrupted. The entity hungered for power and sought to consume the living, using the supermarket as a conduit to wreak havoc in the world. Its whispers and manifestations were a reflection of its malevolent desires. With the knowledge of the entity's origins, Robert and Professor Blake embarked on a perilous mission to confront the malevolent force. Armed with ancient incantations and protective charms, they sought to banish the entity from the supermarket. The battle that followed was a test of their resolve and determination. The entity fought back with all its otherworldly strength, summoning shadows and tormenting them with horrifying visions. In their darkest hour, Robert and Professor Blake discovered an ancient artifact, the Talisman of Binding. It was said to have the power to restrain malevolent forces and banish them from the mortal realm. As they wielded the talisman against the entity, it trembled and howled, unable to escape its grasp. Robert and Professor Blake's voices rang out with the incantations, invoking ancient powers to seal the entity's fate. In a final burst of brilliant light, the malevolent entity was banished from the supermarket, vanquished by the combined might of Robert, Professor Blake, and the Talisman of Binding. The supermarket was free from its dark influence, and silence once again reigned within its walls. But Robert knew that their battle was far from over. The malevolent entity's power remained bound to the town, and the secrets of its past still held dark mysteries waiting to be uncovered. In the wake of the malevolent entity's defeat, the supermarket regained a semblance of normalcy. The strange occurrences ceased, and the supermarket's eerie reputation gradually faded. However, Robert couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows of the entity still clung to the town. The whispers had not completely vanished, and he couldn't help but wonder if the entity's banishment was only temporary. During his continued investigations, Robert stumbled upon a series of cryptic writings hidden in the supermarket's basement. The writings appeared to be a journal of a former employee, detailing unsettling encounters with supernatural forces within the supermarket. The journal mentioned a prophecy that foretold the return of the malevolent entity, and it spoke of an ancient ritual that could seal its fate once and for all. Robert reached out to Professor Evelyn Blake once more, hoping she could decipher the cryptic writings and provide guidance on how to prevent the malevolent entity's return. Upon her return, Professor Blake revealed that the ritual mentioned in the journal was fraught with danger and required a precise set of circumstances. She urged caution, warning that any misstep could unleash unspeakable horrors. As Robert and Professor Blake delved deeper into the cryptic writings, they discovered that the ritual was tied to a celestial event, an upcoming solar eclipse that would cast the town into total darkness. According to the writings, the malevolent entity could only be summoned or sealed during such a celestial convergence. The eclipse was rapidly approaching, leaving them with little time to prepare. Robert and Professor Blake dedicated themselves to preparing for the looming eclipse. They sought out rare and powerful artifacts, including a set of ancient keys that were said to unlock the ritual's potential. As they scoured the town for these keys, they encountered strange omens and signs, ominous clouds, blood-red moons, and unusual animal behavior. It was as though the world itself recognized the impending danger. In the days leading up to the eclipse, a sense of foreboding hung over Oakwood. The townsfolk, though unaware of the impending ritual, felt a growing unease in the air. Robert and Professor Blake continued their preparations in secret, knowing that the stakes were higher than ever. They could sense the malevolent entity's presence growing stronger, as if it were drawn to the convergence of celestial forces. The day of the eclipse finally arrived, shrouding the town in an eerie darkness. As the moon began to obscure the sun, Robert and Professor Blake made their way to the supermarket, carrying the keys and the ancient artifacts needed for the ritual. With each passing moment, the tension grew palpable, and the supermarket seemed to reverberate with a malevolent energy. In the heart of the supermarket, beneath the obscured sun, Robert and Professor Blake initiated the ritual. Their voices rang out with incantations that resonated with the celestial alignment, and they unlocked the hidden power of the keys and artifacts. As the ritual progressed, the malevolent entity's presence intensified, attempting to thwart their efforts. Shadows swirled around them, and ghostly apparitions materialized, lashing out in a desperate bid to disrupt the ceremony. Despite the entity's relentless interference, Robert and Professor Blake persevered, drawing upon the ancient magic of the ritual to seal the malevolent force. The supermarket's aisles became a battlefield, with supernatural forces clashing in a maelstrom of power. As the eclipse reached its zenith, the malevolent entity let out a deafening, agonized scream. It was pulled into the center of the ritual, bound by the ancient enchantments woven by Robert and Professor Blake. In a blinding burst of celestial energy, the malevolent entity was sealed once more, trapped in the realm between worlds. Its malevolence dissipated, and the supermarket's eerie aura began to fade. The eclipse waned, and sunlight bathed the town once more. Oakwood, though forever marked by its supernatural history, had been saved from the entity's clutches. The sealing ritual had succeeded, but it came at a cost. Both Robert and Professor Blake had been profoundly affected by the ancient magic they had wielded. Their minds were filled with visions and fragmented memories of the malevolent entity's torment. As they struggled to regain their composure, Robert and Professor Blake knew that their battle against the supernatural was far from over. The entity might be sealed, but its influence lingered in their minds. In the aftermath of the sealing ritual, Robert and Professor Blake decided to launch a comprehensive paranormal investigation of Oakwood. They were determined to uncover the town's hidden history of dark rituals, malevolent entities, and the secrets that bound them. Their research led them to long-forgotten texts and documents that revealed the town's connection to a network of ancient cults, each with its own set of forbidden knowledge. As they dug deeper into the town's history, Robert and Professor Blake began to uncover a web of conspiracy that extended beyond Oakwood. Dark forces, operating in the shadows for centuries, had manipulated events to ensure the malevolent entity's return. It became clear that the supernatural occurrences in the town were just the tip of the iceberg, and that a greater, more sinister plot was at play. Robert and Professor Blake also discovered references to a group of ancient guardians who had fought against the malevolent entity in centuries past. These guardians were said to possess knowledge and abilities passed down through generations, and they had sacrificed much to protect the world from the entity's darkness. Their existence hinted at the possibility of allies in the ongoing battle against the supernatural. Among the ancient texts, Robert and Professor Blake uncovered a series of prophecies that foretold a cataclysmic event, the potential return of the malevolent entity, and the unleashing of unspeakable horrors upon the world. The prophecies spoke of chosen individuals who would rise to confront this looming threat. Robert and Professor Blake realized that they were among those chosen to stand against the darkness. In their quest to uncover the truth and prepare for the prophesied battle, Robert and Professor Blake began to seek out other potential guardians. They reached out to individuals with unique talents and knowledge of the supernatural, forming a clandestine network dedicated to protecting the world. As the group gathered, they shared their own encounters with malevolent forces and worked to decipher the secrets of the ancient guardians. With the group of guardians assembled, they began their training in earnest. Professor Blake served as their mentor, guiding them in harnessing their unique abilities and imparting the knowledge required to face the supernatural threats. The training was grueling, and the guardians faced physical and mental challenges that pushed them to their limits. They knew that their preparation was the key to preventing the malevolent entity's return. During a particularly intense training session, one of the guardians experienced a vision, a harrowing glimpse of a world plunged into darkness, where the malevolent entity had broken free of its prison and wreaked havoc upon humanity. The vision served as a stark reminder of the stakes involved in their battle against the supernatural. It strengthened their resolve to prevent the prophecy from becoming a reality. As the Guardians delved deeper into their training, they learned of a forgotten artifact, the Reliquary of Shadows. It was said to hold the power to permanently destroy malevolent entities and prevent their return. However, the artifact was hidden in a place shrouded in darkness and guarded by formidable supernatural forces. The Guardians knew that they would have to embark on a perilous journey to retrieve it. With their training near completion, the Guardians prepared for the perilous journey to retrieve the Reliquary of Shadows. They equipped themselves with ancient relics and protective amulets, ready to face the unknown. Their journey would take them into the heart of darkness, where the malevolent entity's influence still lingered and where the final battle to prevent its return would be waged. The old, dilapidated mansion had always been shrouded in mystery. Nestled deep within the dense woods, it stood as a foreboding presence, casting a shadow over the nearby town. Locals whispered tales of a malevolent ghost that haunted its halls, a spirit that could drive anyone who dared to enter to the brink of madness. Dr. Thomas Crawford, a renowned psychologist, had always scoffed at stories of the supernatural. He believed that everything could be explained by science and the human mind. So when he received a letter from a desperate family living near the mansion, begging him to investigate the ghostly occurrences that plagued them, he saw it as an opportunity to prove his beliefs. The Johnson family, the mansion's current residents, greeted Dr. Crawford with a mixture of hope and fear. Their once happy home had become a nightmare. Objects moved on their own, strange whispers filled the night, and apparitions appeared in the dimly lit corridors. Mrs. Johnson implored Dr. Crawford to use his expertise to rid their house of the malevolent presence that tormented them. Reluctantly, he agreed to stay in the mansion to conduct his investigation. Dr. Crawford settled into the mansion, convinced that he would quickly debunk the supernatural claims. He rigged cameras in every room, believing that any disturbances would reveal themselves as mere tricks of the mind or easily explainable phenomena. But as he lay in his makeshift bedroom that first night, the temperature plummeted and the air grew heavy with an unnatural chill. He heard the soft, mournful sound of a woman weeping, her voice echoing through the darkened corridors. Dr. Crawford rose from his bed and followed the sound of the weeping, convinced it was merely a member of the Johnson family. But as he entered the hallway, his flashlight illuminated a figure, a spectral woman in a tattered white dress, her eyes filled with sorrow. The apparition extended a ghostly hand, beckoning him closer. It was then that Dr. Crawford's skepticism wavered, replaced by a gnawing uncertainty. In the days that followed, Dr. Crawford experienced a series of unexplainable phenomena. Furniture rearranged itself, the walls seemed to breathe, and unsettling visions haunted his waking hours. He watched in horror as the apparition appeared before him repeatedly, her eyes pleading for help. Desperate for answers, he delved into the mansion's history and discovered a dark secret, a tragic love story that had ended in betrayal and death. The mansion's history revealed that it had once been owned by a wealthy family, the Hamiltons. It was in those very walls that Elizabeth Hamilton had fallen in love with a young artist, Jonathan Thorne. Their love was forbidden, as Jonathan was from a lower social class. When the Hamiltons discovered their secret romance, they conspired to keep the lovers apart, leading to a series of tragic events that culminated in Elizabeth's untimely death. As Dr. Crawford dug deeper into the mansion's history, he uncovered a pattern of tragedy and betrayal that extended beyond Elizabeth and Jonathan's ill-fated love. Each owner of the mansion had met a gruesome end, driven to madness or suicide. It became clear that the mansion itself was cursed, its very walls steeped in the anguish of the past. Dr. Crawford realized that the malevolent force that tormented the Johnson family was the vengeful spirit of Elizabeth Hamilton, seeking retribution for the injustice done to her. Desperate to free the mansion from the curse, Dr. Crawford decided to conduct a seance, hoping to make contact with Elizabeth's restless spirit. He enlisted the help of a medium, Madame Leclerc, renowned for her ability to communicate with the otherworldly. As the seance began, the room grew cold and the candles flickered. Dr. Crawford and the Johnson family watched in awe as Madame Leclerc channeled the spirit of Elizabeth, her voice filled with sorrow and longing. Through Madame Leclerc, Elizabeth's spirit confessed to the torment she had unleashed upon the mansion's inhabitants. She sought vengeance for the pain she had endured, her heart forever broken by betrayal and despair. Dr. Crawford, overcome with empathy for the vengeful spirit, promised to help her find peace. He vowed to uncover the truth behind her tragic death and bring closure to the tormented souls trapped within the mansion's cursed walls. In his quest to unravel the mystery surrounding Elizabeth Hamilton's death, Dr. Crawford stumbled upon a hidden diary that had been carefully concealed within the mansion's walls. The diary belonged to Elizabeth herself, and its pages contained the darkest secrets of her life. As Dr. Crawford read through the diary's entries, he was confronted with the heartbreaking tale of Elizabeth's forbidden love for Jonathan Thorne and the relentless pressure placed upon her by her family to abandon her affections. The diary revealed that Elizabeth's brother, Nathaniel Hamilton, had been the chief architect of her misery. Driven by a desire to preserve the family's social status and wealth, Nathaniel had manipulated events to keep Elizabeth and Jonathan apart, ultimately leading to Jonathan's exile and Elizabeth's subsequent demise. As Dr. Crawford delved deeper into Nathaniel's actions, he uncovered a chilling truth. Nathaniel had played a role in Elizabeth's death, a dark secret he had guarded for years. Dr. Crawford knew that the key to granting Elizabeth peace lay in revealing the truth and exposing Nathaniel's betrayal. He continued to conduct seances, connecting with the spirits of both Elizabeth and Jonathan, who had been bound to the mansion by their tragic love story. The spirits of Elizabeth and Jonathan implored him to find evidence of Nathaniel's treachery and clear their names, allowing them to finally move on to the afterlife. As Dr. Crawford delved deeper into his investigation, he encountered an unexpected adversary, an even more malevolent presence that lurked in the shadows of the mansion. This entity seemed to feed on the anguish and suffering of the trapped spirits, growing stronger with each passing day. It became evident that the curse afflicting the mansion had multiple layers, with a malevolent force that extended beyond Elizabeth's vengeful spirit. In a daring confrontation with Nathaniel Hamilton's lingering spirit, Dr. Crawford pressed for the truth. Nathaniel confessed to his role in Elizabeth's tragic death and the subsequent cover-up orchestrated by the Hamilton family. But Nathaniel's spirit was not alone. It was accompanied by an even darker force, a malevolent entity that had used Nathaniel as a conduit to carry out its malevolent acts. The malevolent entity revealed itself as the true source of the mansion's curse. It had latched onto the Hamilton family's secrets and exploited the tragedy of Elizabeth and Jonathan's love to perpetuate its dark influence. Now, the entity demanded a sacrifice, one that would allow it to break free from the confines of the mansion and unleash unspeakable horrors upon the world. It threatened to torment not only the living, but also the souls of the deceased if its demands were not met. As the malevolent entity's influence grew, Dr. Crawford found himself in a battle not only against the supernatural, but also within himself. Doubt and fear gnawed at his resolve, and he questioned whether he had the strength to confront the malevolent force. Elizabeth and Jonathan's spirits, bound to the mansion, offered their support, but the entity's relentless presence continued to chip away at his sanity. With the malevolent entity's demands becoming increasingly sinister, Dr. Crawford hatched a desperate plan. He would gather the Johnson family and Madame Leclerc for a final séance, one that would attempt to banish the entity once and for all. He hoped that by uniting the living and the dead, they could summon enough collective strength to confront the malevolent force and sever its hold on the mansion. The night of the final séance arrived, and Dr. Crawford and his allies gathered in the mansion's most haunted chamber. Candles flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls as they began the ritual. As they chanted incantations, the room grew colder, and the malevolent entity's presence manifested itself. It lashed out with all its otherworldly power, seeking to protect its hold on the mansion. In a climactic battle of wills and supernatural forces, Dr. Crawford and his allies faced the malevolent entity head-on. Madame Leclerc channeled the spirits of Elizabeth and Jonathan, and together they unleashed a torrent of spiritual energy. The mansion's very foundations quaked as the entity fought back with relentless fury, but the collective determination of the living and the dead proved stronger. In a blinding burst of light, the entity was banished from the mansion. With the malevolent entity banished, the mansion's curse began to lift, and a sense of tranquility settled over the old house. The once haunted halls echoed with a newfound peace, and the Johnson family, free from torment, felt a profound relief. For the first time in years, the mansion began to show signs of life as the Johnsons started restoring it to its former glory. Dr. Crawford couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction in knowing that he had played a part in redeeming the mansion's dark history. Elizabeth and Jonathan's spirits, now unburdened by the malevolent entity's influence, lingered in the mansion for a short time. They expressed their gratitude to Dr. Crawford for helping them find closure and redemption. As they bid farewell to the living world, their spirits finally found solace and moved on to the afterlife, leaving behind a mansion that was no longer haunted by their tragic love story. Dr. Crawford continued his research into the supernatural, forever changed by his experiences in the haunted mansion. He wrote a book detailing his investigations, which garnered both acclaim and skepticism from the scientific community. While many praised his work as groundbreaking, others dismissed it as the ramblings of a deluded mind. Nevertheless, Dr. Crawford remained undeterred, determined to unravel the mysteries of the supernatural world. Years passed, and the haunted mansion faded into local legend. But just as Dr. Crawford had feared, the malevolent entity's influence was not entirely vanquished. It began to resurface, slowly gathering strength and power once more. Strange occurrences once again plagued the mansion, and whispers of a malevolent force returned, casting a shadow over the town. Distressed by the mansion's renewed haunting, the Johnson family reached out to Dr. Crawford once more. They pleaded for his assistance, hoping that his expertise in the supernatural could once again rid the mansion of its malevolent curse. Dr. Crawford, haunted by the events of his previous encounter, knew that he couldn't turn his back on the Johnsons. He returned to the mansion, determined to confront the malevolent entity once more. As Dr. Crawford delved back into the mysteries of the mansion, he discovered that the malevolent entity sought revenge. It had grown stronger during its absence, and now hungered for retribution against those who had banished it. The entity unleashed a relentless assault, targeting Dr. Crawford and the Johnson family with a series of malevolent attacks, each one more sinister than the last. With the malevolent entity's attacks escalating, Dr. Crawford knew that they had to act swiftly to stop it from fully regaining its power. He reached out to Madame Leclerc and the spirits of Elizabeth and Jonathan, seeking their guidance on a sealing ritual. They explained that the entity had to be sealed away permanently, its power contained in an object that could withstand its malevolence. Together, they embarked on a quest to find the necessary components for the ritual. The components for the sealing ritual were scattered across the town, hidden in places touched by the malevolent entity's influence. Dr. Crawford, the Johnson family, and their spiritual allies set out on a perilous journey to collect them. As they gathered the components, the malevolent entity's presence grew stronger, sending malevolent apparitions and harrowing visions to torment them. One of the crucial components required for the sealing ritual was an ancient relic, the Chalice of Sorrows, said to have the power to contain the malevolent entity's dark energy. To retrieve the relic, they ventured into an abandoned church on the outskirts of town, a place that had been touched by the malevolent entity's darkness for centuries. Inside the church, they encountered a manifestation of the malevolent entity, an embodiment of darkness and despair. It taunted them with the sins of their past, threatening to consume their souls. In a fierce battle of wills, they invoked the power of the Chalice of Sorrows and the spirits of Elizabeth and Jonathan, channeling their collective strength to confront the malevolent force. The Silvervale supermarket, nestled at the edge of the quiet suburban town, had always been a beacon of convenience for the townsfolk. By day, it bustled with shoppers, the shelves lined with neatly arranged groceries, and the cash registers chiming with transactions. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and the world plunged into darkness, the supermarket took on an entirely different persona. It was during the graveyard shift, under the dim, flickering fluorescent lights, that its true nature revealed itself. Vincent Rourke, a middle-aged security guard with a quiet demeanor, had patrolled the Silvervale supermarket for years. His job was straightforward: keep an eye on the CCTV cameras, deter potential thieves, and ensure the premises remained secure. However, Vincent had always been acutely aware of something strange about the supermarket during the late hours. Whispers of unusual occurrences had circulated among the previous security guards, but they were dismissed as mere superstitions. One night, while reviewing the CCTV footage in his small office tucked away in a corner of the supermarket, Vincent spotted something inexplicable. A shadowy figure moved across one of the monitors, appearing and disappearing in the blink of an eye. Puzzled and intrigued, Vincent rewound the footage and watched it again, this time paying closer attention. The figure seemed to materialize from thin air, its form vague and insubstantial. It moved with an eerie, almost ethereal grace, as if it didn't belong in the realm of the living. Doubt gnawed at Vincent's mind, but curiosity drove him forward. He couldn't ignore the sense of unease that had settled in the pit of his stomach. The supermarket held a secret, one that beckoned him to unravel its mysteries. In the days that followed, Vincent couldn't shake the unsettling image of the shadowy figure from the CCTV footage. He began to notice subtle, eerie occurrences during his nightly patrols through the supermarket's dimly lit aisles. Grocery carts moved on their own, rolling silently down the aisles as if guided by unseen hands. Shelves were occasionally found in disarray, with products scattered across the floor despite no sign of intrusion. And Vincent swore he heard faint, ghostly laughter echoing through the deserted supermarket late at night. Vincent confided in his colleague Lisa, who had worked alongside him for years. She was initially skeptical, but agreed to review the CCTV footage with him. Together, they watched as the shadowy figure moved in and out of frame, its presence undeniable. Fear etched itself onto Lisa's face as she turned to Vincent and whispered, "We're not alone in here, are we?" Determined to uncover the truth, Vincent and Lisa decided to conduct a vigil during one of their night shifts. They armed themselves with flashlights, walkie-talkies, and a sense of apprehension that hung heavy in the air. As the clock struck midnight, the supermarket's fluorescent lights flickered ominously. Vincent and Lisa felt a chill run down their spines as they began to patrol the store's aisles. They watched, hearts pounding, as grocery carts creaked into motion and spectral whispers echoed around them. Suddenly, they glimpsed it, a shadowy silhouette standing at the end of an aisle. Vincent shone his flashlight toward the figure, but it evaporated into nothingness, leaving only the chilling memory of its presence. The ghostly encounters in the supermarket continued to escalate. Shelves toppled over, cans flew through the air, and the once orderly store devolved into chaos each night. The town's residents whispered rumors of a malevolent spirit haunting the supermarket, keeping them away after dark. Vincent and Lisa delved into the supermarket's history, uncovering a grim tale from the past. Decades ago, the land on which the store stood had been home to a cemetery, its graves disturbed to make way for progress. Some believe the spirit of a restless soul sought vengeance for its desecrated resting place. Desperate for answers, Vincent and Lisa sought the help of a local paranormal investigator named Professor Evelyn Blackwood. With her expertise, they aimed to communicate with the entity and uncover its motives. Professor Blackwood arrived at the Silverville supermarket with a collection of mysterious artifacts and an air of confidence that unnerved Vincent and Lisa. They gathered in the supermarket's storage room, where the paranormal investigator prepared for a seance. As the seance began, the room grew colder and candles flickered ominously. Professor Blackwood chanted incantations, attempting to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. Suddenly, the supermarket was plunged into darkness, and a ghostly presence made itself known. In the pitch-black room, the ghostly presence spoke through Professor Blackwood, its voice filled with anger and sorrow. It revealed itself as Samuel Holt, a groundskeeper from the former cemetery. He had been disturbed from his eternal rest when the supermarket was built, and his anger had consumed him. Samuel's vengeful spirit blamed the supermarket and all who set foot in it for desecrating the graves and displacing the souls of the deceased. He sought to torment those who dared enter, hoping to avenge the sanctity of the land he once tended. Vincent and Lisa, hearts heavy with guilt, realized they were responsible for bringing Samuel's wrath upon themselves. They now faced an impossible task, finding a way to appease the vengeful spirit and lay his troubled soul to rest. Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood knew that appeasing Samuel Holt's vengeful spirit was their only chance to end the supernatural torment in the supermarket. They embarked on a quest to uncover the truth about the desecrated graves and find a way to redeem themselves. Their research led them to the town's archives, where they unearthed documents detailing the construction of the supermarket. They discovered that the graves had been moved to a nearby cemetery, or so it was believed. Determined to make amends, the trio resolved to find Samuel's original resting place and restore his dignity in death. Under the cover of night, Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood set out to find the long-forgotten cemetery where Samuel Holt had been laid to rest. Armed with shovels and a sense of unease, they ventured into the dense woods rumored to hide the lost graveyard. After hours of searching, they stumbled upon a neglected, overgrown cemetery concealed among the trees. Tombstones were toppled and covered in vines, a solemn testament to years of neglect. Their hearts heavy with trepidation, they began to dig beneath a gnarled oak tree where Samuel's grave should have been. It didn't take long for their shovels to strike wood, and as they unearthed the coffin, a bone-chilling realization struck them. The grave was empty. The empty grave only deepened the mystery surrounding Samuel Holt's restless spirit. It seemed that not only had his grave been disturbed, but also his remains had vanished, leaving no trace. In their quest for redemption, Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood began to unravel the twisted legacy of those who had built the supermarket. They uncovered a web of deceit, blackmail, and sinister motives that had driven the desecration of the cemetery and the disappearance of Samuel's remains. As they delved deeper into the town's dark history, they realized that confronting Samuel's wrath was just the beginning of their journey to uncover the truth and bring peace to the tormented spirits of Silvervale. In their pursuit of answers, Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood stumbled upon an old journal hidden within the archives of the town's historical society. The journal had belonged to a man named Elias Worthington, who had been a prominent figure in the town during the time of the cemetery's desecration. Elias Worthington's journal detailed a sinister pact he had made with a group known as the Ebon Circle, promising them riches and power in exchange for the desecration of the cemetery and the theft of Samuel Holt's remains. With newfound determination, the trio vowed to uncover the surviving members of the Ebon Circle, hoping they held the key to appeasing Samuel Holt's spirit and breaking the curse that gripped the supermarket. Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood's relentless investigation led them to a hidden underground network known as the Ebon Circle. It was a secret society that had existed for generations, wielding power and influence over the town. They discovered that the surviving members of the Ebon Circle had passed down their sinister traditions, keeping the stolen remains of Samuel Holt as part of a dark ritual that granted them immortality and unimaginable wealth. With this revelation, the trio knew they had to confront the Ebon Circle and force them to return Samuel's remains, breaking the curse that bound his vengeful spirit to the supermarket. Armed with knowledge and conviction, Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood devised a plan to infiltrate the Ebon Circle's clandestine meetings. They would attend the next gathering, posing as potential recruits eager to partake in the Circle's forbidden secrets. Disguised in dark robes and with hearts pounding, they entered the secret chamber beneath the town's oldest church. There, they found themselves among the town's most influential and corrupt individuals, all gathered to conduct the dark ritual that had sustained their wealth and immortality. As the ritual commenced, Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood fought to maintain their cover while seeking an opportunity to seize Samuel Holt's remains and put an end to the malevolent curse. Amidst the eerie chants and the flickering candlelight, Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood observed the Ebon Circle members enact their ritual. The stolen remains of Samuel Holt were placed at the center of an intricate pentagram, and dark energies began to surge. The trio watched in horror as Samuel's vengeful spirit materialized, his rage and despair echoing through the chamber. It was a moment of reckoning, a showdown between the malevolent entity and those who had wronged him. But the Ebon Circle members were no ordinary mortals. Their power was immense, and they fought to maintain control over Samuel's spirit. A desperate struggle ensued, with Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood racing against time to seize the remains and set Samuel free. As the confrontation escalated, it became clear that the Ebon Circle members would stop at nothing to protect their immortality and wealth. In a harrowing turn of events, one of the Circle's most sinister members prepared to make a horrifying sacrifice to bind Samuel's spirit even tighter to their dark agenda. Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood were faced with an impossible decision: stand by and watch as the sacrifice was carried out, or intervene at the risk of their own lives. In a moment of selflessness and courage, one of them made a heart-wrenching choice that would alter the course of their mission and bring them closer to breaking the curse. The sacrifice was thwarted, but at a great cost. Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood had fractured the alliance of the Ebon Circle, forcing them to flee the scene in disarray. Samuel Holt's spirit, however, remained bound by the remnants of the interrupted ritual, his torment intensifying. Despite the setback, the trio managed to secure the stolen remains and retreat from the church. They now faced the daunting task of finding a way to release Samuel's spirit and cleanse the supermarket of its malevolent curse once and for all. But with the Ebon Circle still at large and Samuel Holt's fury unabated, they knew that their fight against the supernatural forces that plagued Silvervale was far from over. With Samuel Holt's stolen remains in their possession, Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood knew they had a critical piece of the puzzle to break the curse that plagued the Silvervale supermarket. However, they lacked the knowledge and resources to perform the necessary rituals to release Samuel's tormented spirit. Desperate, and with time running out, they sought the guidance of a reclusive expert in the occult named Sebastian Thorn. He was known to possess ancient texts and esoteric knowledge that could aid in their quest for redemption. They journeyed deep into the wilderness to find Thorn's remote cabin, a place shrouded in its own air of foreboding. As they knocked on the door, they could only hope that Thorn would be willing to share his secrets. Sebastian Thorn, an enigmatic figure with eyes that seemed to see into the depths of one's soul, greeted Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood with an eerie calmness. He listened intently as they recounted their harrowing experiences with Samuel Holt's vengeful spirit and the sinister machinations of the Ebon Circle. Thorn agreed to help them, but at a price. He demanded their unwavering commitment to a dangerous and intricate ritual, one that involved opening a doorway to the spirit realm, confronting Samuel's wrath, and convincing him to move on. With no other choice, the trio reluctantly agreed to Thorn's conditions, embarking on a journey that would take them deeper into the supernatural than they had ever dared to venture. Under the guidance of Sebastian Thorn, Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood prepared for the perilous ritual that would open a doorway to the spirit realm. They gathered the necessary materials, inscribed cryptic symbols, and practiced incantations that would bridge the gap between the living and the dead. As the midnight hour approached, they assembled in the dimly lit chamber beneath Thorn's cabin. Candles flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls, and a profound sense of unease settled over them. With Thorn leading the way, they began the ritual, chanting words that resonated with ancient power. The room grew colder, and the air became charged with an otherworldly energy as the veil between the realms thinned. As the ritual reached its climax, a spectral vortex materialized before them, a swirling maelstrom of ethereal energy. From within the vortex emerged Samuel Holt's vengeful spirit, his eyes burning with anger and sorrow. The room trembled as Samuel's presence filled every corner. He was a tormented soul, consumed by his desire for vengeance and unable to find peace. Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood knew that their words and actions in the next moments would determine Samuel's fate and their own. They begged Samuel for forgiveness, recounting the depths of their remorse for their role in the desecration of his resting place. Tears fell, and hearts were laid bare as they implored him to let go of his rage and find solace. In the presence of Samuel's wrath, the trio's pleas seemed to hang in the balance between redemption and eternal damnation. Samuel's ghostly form wavered, his anger warring with the pain of his tortured existence. With a voice that echoed through the chamber, he spoke of his anguish, the centuries of torment he had endured, and the longing for the peace of the afterlife. As his spectral figure flickered, it became clear that he was teetering on the brink of a decision. Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood held their breath, their hopes pinned on Samuel's ultimate choice, a choice that would either grant them redemption and release the supermarket from its curse, or condemn them to an eternity of suffering. The night was thick with fog when Alex and Emma moved into their new home, a quaint, old Victorian mansion with a dark history. As they settled in, they'd brushed off the unsettling stories their neighbors whispered about the house being haunted. In a climactic moment, Samuel Holt's spectral figure quivered with conflicting emotions. His eyes, once burning with anger, now softened with a mixture of sorrow and acceptance. The words of forgiveness from Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood had pierced through the walls of his torment. With a heavy sigh, Samuel spoke, his voice a spectral whisper that echoed in the chamber. "I release my anger and grant you the redemption you seek. I forgive you for the wrongs committed against me." As he uttered these words, a blinding light enveloped his form, and he began to dissipate into the ether. It was a moment of profound catharsis, as Samuel's spirit found the peace he had longed for, leaving behind a sense of closure that hung in the air. With Samuel Holt's forgiveness, the curse that had plagued the Silverville supermarket began to lift. The supernatural occurrences ceased, and the store's long-forgotten peace was gradually restored. The townsfolk, unaware of the horrors that had unfolded beneath their feet, returned to shopping at the supermarket during all hours without fear. The stories of hauntings and malevolent spirits faded into distant memory, replaced by the mundane routine of everyday life. Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood had succeeded in their quest for redemption, but the experience had left its mark on them. They had delved into the depths of the supernatural and faced horrors beyond imagination, forever changed by their encounter with the spectral world. As the days turned into weeks, the trio found themselves haunted by the events of their supernatural ordeal. They were plagued by unsettling dreams and the constant feeling that they were being watched. It became clear that their connection to the spirit world had not been severed entirely. They knew that they had more to uncover, secrets that still lay buried, and a final piece of the puzzle that would grant them true closure. They returned to the archives, delving deeper into the town's history, searching for answers that had eluded them. Their research revealed a chilling truth. While Samuel Holt's spirit had found peace, there remained a malevolent remnant of the Ebon Circle, the one who had escaped their confrontation during the ritual. This sinister figure, now aware of their pursuit, sought to unleash supernatural forces more terrifying than anything they had encountered before. With renewed determination, Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood realized that their journey was far from over. They would confront this final malevolent force, uncover the Ebon Circle's darkest secrets, and bring an end to the lingering supernatural threat that still loomed over Silvervale. The malevolent remnant of the Ebon Circle, shrouded in darkness and wielding sinister powers, proved to be a formidable adversary. It taunted and tormented the trio, unleashing a barrage of supernatural horrors that pushed their limits. Their confrontation reached its climax in a cataclysmic showdown, a battle between the forces of light and darkness that would determine the fate of Silvervale. Spells and incantations collided, and the very fabric of reality seemed to warp and fracture as the final, devastating clash ensued. In the throes of battle, Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood were pushed to their limits, their strength waning as the malevolent remnant's power grew stronger. With each passing moment, it became clear that they would need to make an ultimate sacrifice to vanquish the darkness once and for all. In an act of unwavering bravery, one of them made a heart-wrenching decision that would change the course of their mission. It was a choice that demanded great sacrifice, but it was the only way to break the malevolent remnant's hold on the town. The sacrifice, while heartbreaking, proved to be the catalyst that shattered the malevolent remnant's power. With a blinding surge of light and a deafening roar, the malevolent force was vanquished, its darkness dissipated into the ether. The townsfolk of Silvervale, unaware of the epic battle that had transpired, awoke to find the curse that had loomed over their lives had finally lifted. The supernatural horrors were no more, and the town was bathed in a newfound peace. Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood, despite the heavy toll their journey had taken on them, knew they had succeeded in their quest. The town was free from the malevolent forces that had haunted it for so long. Though Silvervale had been freed from the malevolent forces that had haunted it for generations, the trio of Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood bore the weight of their journey's toll. Their lives had been forever altered by their encounters with the supernatural, and the scars of their experiences ran deep. In the weeks that followed, they found solace in each other's company, seeking to rebuild their lives and restore a semblance of normalcy. Yet it was impossible to forget the horrors they had faced, the sacrifices they had made, and the mysteries that still lingered in the shadows. As they attempted to return to their respective lives, it became clear that their supernatural journey was not truly over. Strange occurrences continued to follow them, as if the remnants of the malevolent force were determined to remind them of their unfinished business. Whispers in the dark, unexplained phenomena, and a constant feeling of being watched plagued their everyday existence. It was as though the supernatural world refused to release its grip on their lives. The trio's worst fears were realized when the remnants of the Ebon Circle, believed to have been defeated, began to resurface. It appeared that their malevolent influence had not been completely eradicated, and their thirst for power and revenge was stronger than ever. Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood knew that they could not ignore this resurgence. The sinister figures behind the Ebon Circle sought to reclaim their lost power and finish what they had started, putting the entire town of Silvervale at risk once more. With the Ebon Circle's return, Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood were faced with an impossible choice: accept the renewed threat or take drastic action to confront the malevolent organization once and for all. They devised a desperate plan to infiltrate the Ebon Circle's hidden sanctum, uncover their darkest secrets, and prevent them from unleashing supernatural horrors upon the town. It would be a perilous mission, one that would test their resolve and push them to the brink of their abilities. The trio's perilous journey led them deep into the heart of the town's most ancient and sinister secrets. They uncovered the location of the Ebon Circle's hidden sanctum, a long-forgotten catacomb beneath the town's oldest cemetery. As they ventured into the underground labyrinth, they felt the weight of centuries of darkness bearing down on them. The air was thick with foreboding, and the walls seemed to close in, echoing with the whispers of the past. In the depths of the hidden sanctum, Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood discovered the Ebon Circle's true purpose, an insidious plot to harness the darkest forces of the supernatural and unleash them upon the world. They uncovered the chilling legacy of the Ebon Circle, a sinister tradition that had been passed down through generations. The malevolent organization was willing to sacrifice everything, even the town itself, to attain ultimate power and immortality. As Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood confronted the Ebon Circle within the dark recesses of the hidden sanctum, a final, cataclysmic showdown ensued. Spells and incantations collided, and the very fabric of reality teetered on the brink of destruction. In a climactic battle between good and evil, the trio fought to thwart the Ebon Circle's sinister plot and prevent the release of unspeakable horrors upon Silvervale. It was a battle that would test their strength, resilience, and unwavering determination. The battle raged on, each side desperate to achieve their goals. In the end, it was the trio's indomitable spirit, their resolve, and their willingness to sacrifice everything for the sake of their town that tipped the scales in their favor. The malevolent forces of the Ebon Circle were defeated once and for all, their dark plot thwarted, and their sinister legacy brought to an end. The town of Silvervale was finally free from the shadow of the supernatural. Vincent, Lisa, and Professor Blackwood emerged from the depths of the hidden sanctum, forever changed by their experiences. They had faced the most terrifying of horrors, conquered the supernatural, and ensured the safety of their town. As they gazed at the peaceful town of Silvervale, they knew that their journey had come to an end. The supernatural had tested their limits, but it had also forged their bonds of friendship and their strength of character. Though they bore the scars of their encounters, they had emerged victorious. And as the trio looked to the horizon, they knew that the mysteries of the supernatural world would always remain, waiting for those brave enough to seek them out. The old Johnson farm, nestled in the heart of Oak Ridge County, had long been forgotten by the townsfolk. Its sprawling fields, once teeming with life and laughter, had fallen into disrepair. The farmhouse, weathered and decaying, stood as a melancholic monument to a time when the land had thrived. For years, the farm had remained untouched, its secrets buried beneath overgrown weeds and crumbling barns. But all of that was about to change. Evelyn Turner, an ambitious journalist with a fascination for the obscure and the unexplained, had stumbled upon the farm's existence in a dusty, forgotten tome at the town's library. The book contained cryptic references to the Johnson farm and whispered tales of a curse that had befallen it. Driven by a desire for a story that would catapult her career, Evelyn made her way to the forgotten farm, unaware of the horrors that awaited her. Evelyn Turner's journey to the Johnson farm was filled with trepidation and excitement in equal measure. As she approached the farmstead, the dilapidated buildings came into view, casting long shadows over the land. The farmhouse, with its peeling paint and broken windows, stood eerily silent, as if holding its breath in anticipation of her arrival. The fields, once lush and green, had become a tangle of weeds and thorns, concealing the farm's secrets beneath their overgrowth. Evelyn parked her car near the entrance gate and stepped out, her camera in hand and a sense of foreboding in her heart. She knew she had ventured into the unknown, and the farm's haunting aura seemed to welcome her with open arms. Evelyn began her exploration of the Johnson farm, her footsteps echoing through the abandoned buildings. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the creaking of floorboards beneath her feet sent shivers down her spine. She ventured into the farmhouse first, her camera's flashlight piercing the darkness. Dust-covered furniture stood frozen in time, and faded photographs of the Johnson family lined the walls. Evelyn's heart ached as she wondered what had become of them. As she continued her exploration, she couldn't help but feel that the farm held memories that refused to fade with time. Whispers of the past seemed to linger in the air, waiting to be discovered. Evelyn's investigation of the farm unearthed a series of strange and unsettling discoveries. In the barn, she found peculiar symbols etched into the wooden beams, their meaning eluding her. In the cellar, she stumbled upon jars filled with pickled vegetables that appeared to have been preserved for decades. The more she delved into the farm's mysteries, the more questions arose. Who had lived here, and why had they abandoned it? What was the significance of the cryptic symbols, and why were the vegetables preserved for so long? As night descended, Evelyn decided to spend the night in the farmhouse, determined to unravel the secrets that the Johnson farm held. Little did she know that her decision would plunge her into a nightmare from which there might be no escape. As darkness settled over the Johnson farm, Evelyn prepared to spend the night in the old farmhouse. She set up her camera equipment and began recording her findings, hoping to capture evidence of the farm's eerie atmosphere. The farmhouse seemed to come alive with eerie sounds, whispers in the walls, the distant creaking of floorboards, and an occasional draft that sent shivers down Evelyn's spine. She dismissed these as tricks of the imagination, but her unease continued to grow. As the clock struck midnight, a bone-chilling presence seemed to manifest within the farmhouse. Shadows danced in the corners of the room, and a frigid breeze swept through, extinguishing the candles she had lit. The atmosphere grew heavy with an oppressive energy, and Evelyn realized she was not alone in the farmhouse. Evelyn's heart raced as she realized that she was not alone in the farmhouse. A malevolent presence, unseen but undeniably felt, loomed over her. It whispered in a language she could not understand, its voice a cold, rasping hiss. Panic gripped Evelyn as she fumbled for her camera, desperate to document the supernatural occurrences unfolding around her. But the camera malfunctioned, its screen displaying only static. The entity's presence intensified, its anger palpable. Furniture moved on its own, books flew off shelves, and the very walls seemed to close in on her. Evelyn knew that she had ventured into a realm of horror beyond her comprehension, and escape seemed impossible. As the malevolent entity continued to torment Evelyn, fragments of the farm's dark past began to unravel before her eyes. Visions of the Johnson family, once happy and full of life, now distorted by tragedy, flashed through her mind. She saw the family patriarch, Charles Johnson, driven to madness by an unknown force, scribbling cryptic symbols on the walls and muttering incomprehensible incantations. She witnessed the anguish of Sarah Johnson, the matriarch, as she desperately tried to protect her children from the encroaching darkness. Evelyn realized that the farm's curse was tied to a sinister event from its past, an event that had left an indelible mark on the land and its inhabitants. The malevolent entity sought retribution for a long-forgotten transgression, and Evelyn was trapped in its quest for vengeance. Evelyn's night in the farmhouse turned into a relentless nightmare. The malevolent entity, fueled by anger and a thirst for revenge, subjected her to a barrage of supernatural torment. Objects levitated and hurled themselves across the room. Furniture rearranged itself into grotesque configurations, and the walls seemed to bleed with dark, viscous liquid. Evelyn's very sense of reality was unraveling, and terror clung to her like a suffocating shroud. As the hours passed, Evelyn's strength waned, and her determination to document the farm's horrors was overshadowed by the desperate need to survive. She knew that if she did not find a way to appease the malevolent entity, her fate would be sealed in the darkest depths of the Johnson farm. As the malevolent entity's torment continued to escalate, Evelyn's nights in the Johnson farm became a relentless cycle of terror. Each night, she experienced haunting visions that transported her back in time to witness the farm's darkest moments. One night, she found herself standing in the dilapidated barn, surrounded by flickering candlelight. She watched as Charles Johnson, driven to madness, conducted a ritual within a pentagram drawn on the barn's floor. His eyes were wide with terror, and his words were unintelligible. Beside him, Sarah Johnson clutched her children close, tears streaming down her face as she begged for mercy. The malevolent entity loomed over them, a grotesque shadow that seemed to feed on their fear. Evelyn knew that these visions held the key to understanding the farm's curse, but deciphering their meaning would be a daunting challenge. Evelyn was determined to unravel the mystery of the Johnson farm's curse, and the haunting visions provided the clues she needed. Night after night, she witnessed the tragic events that had befallen the family. In one vision, she saw Charles Johnson's obsession with the occult, his descent into madness, and his misguided attempts to harness supernatural powers. His rituals, fueled by a dark force he could not control, had unleashed the malevolent entity that now tormented the farm. Another vision revealed the heartbreak of Sarah Johnson as she struggled to protect her children from the malevolent entity's relentless attacks. She had made desperate bargains and sacrifices, but the entity's thirst for vengeance remained unquenched. Evelyn realized that to break the curse and free the Johnson farm from its torment, she needed to understand the entity's origins and find a way to appease it. The answers lay buried in the farm's tragic history. Evelyn's quest for answers led her to the discovery of an old diary hidden in the farmhouse's attic. The diary belonged to Sarah Johnson and chronicled the family's descent into darkness. In its pages, Sarah recounted her husband's growing obsession with the occult and the sinister rituals he had conducted in a desperate bid for power. She described the malevolent entity that had plagued their lives, a vengeful force that demanded a terrible price for Charles's actions. Sarah's entries revealed her own desperation and her attempts to protect her children from the entity's wrath. She had made a chilling pact with the entity, offering it the souls of those who trespassed on the farm in exchange for sparing her family. Evelyn realized that the farm's curse was intricately tied to the malevolent entity's hunger for souls. To break the curse, she would need to confront the entity and find a way to fulfill or sever the sinister pact. Evelyn's determination to confront the malevolent entity and break the curse led her to delve deeper into the sinister pact that Sarah Johnson had made. She scoured the diary for clues, searching for any information that could help her understand the entity's demands. In a chilling entry, Sarah revealed the entity's insatiable appetite for souls and the conditions of their dreadful pact. It demanded the souls of trespassers as a form of payment, and once offered, the souls were forever bound to the malevolent force. Evelyn realized that she had unknowingly become entangled in this cursed pact the moment she had set foot on the Johnson farm. The malevolent entity now sought her soul as its payment, and she had little time to find a way to fulfill or break the sinister bargain. Evelyn knew that her only chance of survival and breaking the curse lay in confronting the malevolent entity. She had to find a way to appease it, fulfill its demands, or sever the cursed pact. Desperate, she returned to the barn where Charles Johnson had conducted his ill-fated rituals. Armed with the knowledge of the entity's insatiable hunger for souls, she began to conduct her own rituals, invoking protective forces to shield herself. The barn became a battleground of supernatural forces, with Evelyn pitted against the malevolent entity that sought to claim her soul. She chanted incantations, drew protective symbols, and summoned all her courage to face the entity head-on. As the climactic battle between light and darkness unfolded, Evelyn's life hung in the balance, and the fate of the Johnson farm teetered on the brink of resolution. The supernatural battle in the barn raged on, with Evelyn determined to confront the malevolent entity and find a way to fulfill its insidious demand. As she continued her rituals, her courage and determination were put to the ultimate test. The malevolent entity, its presence a swirling maelstrom of darkness, seemed to mock her efforts. It whispered threats and promises of eternal torment, seeking to break her resolve. But Evelyn clung to her determination, knowing that the farm's curse must be broken. In a chilling moment of revelation, the entity made its demand clear. It sought a soul, one soul, to satisfy its insatiable hunger. Evelyn had to make a devastating choice, one that would determine the farm's fate and her own. Evelyn stood at a crossroads, faced with the agonizing choice that would determine her fate and the fate of the Johnson farm. The malevolent entity demanded a soul, and she had to decide whether to offer her own or make an unthinkable sacrifice. With a heavy heart, she made her choice. She would offer her own soul as the price to break the farm's curse and end the torment that had plagued it for generations. As she prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice, the barn filled with an eerie, unnatural light. The malevolent entity loomed before her, its shadowy form shifting and writhing. Evelyn's heart raced as she braced herself for the harrowing moment that would seal her fate. With her heart heavy and resolve unwavering, Evelyn offered her soul as the price to break the curse that had plagued the Johnson farm for centuries. As she made the solemn sacrifice, a blinding light engulfed her, and a searing pain coursed through her body. The malevolent entity, its hunger satisfied, let out a haunting, triumphant wail before dissipating into the ether. The barn, once a battleground of supernatural forces, grew still, and an eerie calm settled over the Johnson farm. Evelyn knew that her sacrifice had come at a great cost, but it was a price she was willing to pay to bring an end to the curse and free the farm from its torment. As the malevolent entity vanished, a profound transformation swept over the Johnson farm. The once decaying farmhouse and barn began to show signs of life. The overgrown fields flourished with vibrant crops, and the air, once heavy with darkness, felt pure and revitalized. Evelyn, though weakened by her sacrifice, witnessed the farm's redemption with awe and relief. She knew that her actions had broken the curse's grip on the land and released the tortured souls of the Johnson family. The spirits of Charles, Sarah, and their children appeared before Evelyn, their expressions no longer tormented. They offered their gratitude for her sacrifice, their voices filled with a sense of peace they had long been denied. With the curse lifted, Evelyn's connection to the Johnson farm persisted. One final vision, different from the tormenting ones before, beckoned to her. In this vision, she saw the Johnson family reunited, their ethereal forms bathed in a warm, comforting light. They held hands, their smiles radiant, and together, they walked toward the horizon, vanishing into a brilliant sunrise. The vision left Evelyn with a sense of closure and a deep understanding of the farm's tragic history. The Johnsons were finally at peace, their souls freed from the darkness that had bound them. Evelyn's journey at the Johnson farm had come to an end, but her life was forever changed. She had witnessed and endured the horrors of the supernatural, made an unimaginable sacrifice, and ultimately brought redemption to the farm. As she left the farm behind, she knew that the mysteries of the supernatural world would continue to beckon, but she also understood the importance of leaving some secrets buried. Her experience had taught her the power of courage, sacrifice, and the enduring human spirit. With a newfound appreciation for life and the unknown, Evelyn Turner embarked on a new chapter, forever haunted by the memories of the Johnson farm and the indomitable forces that lurked in the shadows. Months passed since Evelyn's fateful encounter at the Johnson farm. While the memories of that harrowing experience haunted her, life had moved on. She had become a renowned journalist, known for her fearless pursuit of the unexplained. One day, as she reviewed her mail, a letter caught her attention. It bore no return address and was marked with an ornate seal. Inside, she found a handwritten note that sent shivers down her spine. It read, The secrets of the supernatural world are boundless. If you seek more answers, follow the path of the enigmatic eclipse. The note contained coordinates leading to a remote location deep in the forest, a location known only to those who dabbled in the occult. It was an invitation or a warning. Evelyn couldn't be sure. Intrigued and haunted by the enigmatic message, Evelyn embarked on a journey to the remote forest, guided only by the coordinates she had received. As she ventured deeper into the wilderness, an eerie feeling of being watched gnawed at her. At the heart of the forest, she discovered an ancient stone circle, its origins lost to time. The stones formed a perfect circle, and at the center, a large flat stone bore an intricate carving of a solar eclipse. As Evelyn examined the stone, the sun began to set, casting an eerie shadow over the forest. To her astonishment, the eclipse depicted on the stone began to align with the darkening sky, as if drawing power from the celestial event itself. As Evelyn watched in awe, the eclipse on the stone circle seemed to come alive. Its shadow deepened, and an otherworldly light emanated from the carved celestial event. Before her eyes, the eclipse transformed into a swirling portal, a gateway to the unknown. The forest around her seemed to shift and warp, as if reality itself was bending to the portal's will. Intrigued and filled with a mixture of fear and curiosity, Evelyn stepped closer to the portal. She knew that once she crossed its threshold, there would be no turning back, and the mysteries of the supernatural world would beckon her once more. With a deep breath and a heart pounding with anticipation, Evelyn stepped through the portal, leaving the familiar world behind. What lay beyond was a realm of darkness and wonder, where the laws of reality were rewritten, and the supernatural reigned supreme. She found herself in a surreal landscape, a sprawling, ever-shifting maze of corridors and chambers. Strange creatures, both beautiful and grotesque, roamed the labyrinthine passages, and ethereal whispers echoed through the air. Evelyn knew that she had entered a world untouched by time or logic, a place where ancient secrets awaited discovery. Her journey into the enigmatic eclipse had opened the door to a realm of endless wonder and peril. Evelyn's exploration of the surreal realm led her to a chamber unlike any other, an immense library bathed in an eerie, ethereal light. The shelves were lined with ancient tomes bound in leather that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. As she perused the library shelves, she realized that each book contained knowledge of the supernatural, with topics ranging from forgotten rituals to obscure creatures. The library held the accumulated wisdom of those who had ventured into this realm before her. Evelyn knew that this was a place of both enlightenment and danger. The knowledge contained within these books could unlock untold power or unleash unimaginable horrors. With caution and reverence, she selected a tome and began to decipher its cryptic text. The tome Evelyn had chosen delved into the cosmic mysteries that governed the supernatural realm she had entered. It spoke of a grand cosmic conspiracy, an intricate web of interdimensional forces that shaped the fabric of reality itself. According to the text, the enigmatic eclipse served as a nexus point, a convergence of dimensions where the boundaries between worlds grew thin. Those who could harness its power could gain dominion over the supernatural and reshape reality as they saw fit. Evelyn realized that her journey into this realm was no accident. She had been drawn here to uncover the truth behind the cosmic conspiracy, to understand the forces that govern the supernatural, and to decide whether to protect or expose this hidden knowledge. As Evelyn continued to delve into the mysteries of the library, she became aware of a presence watching her, a spectral figure that materialized from the shadows. It was a guardian of the library, a spectral entity tasked with safeguarding its secrets. The guardian, its form ethereal and ever-shifting, approached Evelyn with a mixture of curiosity and caution. It communicated without words, its thoughts and intentions conveyed through a telepathic connection. Evelyn realized that the guardian held the answers to the questions that had brought her here. It possessed knowledge of the cosmic conspiracy and the supernatural forces that governed this realm. But gaining its trust and unraveling its enigmatic nature would prove to be a daunting challenge. The guardian of the library, its presence a manifestation of the supernatural realm's ancient wisdom, offered Evelyn a choice: to undergo a series of tests that would prove her worthiness to access its knowledge. Evelyn accepted the challenge, knowing that the Guardian's tests would reveal not only her determination, but also her true intentions. The first test involved navigating a maze of illusions, where reality itself shifted and distorted. With unwavering resolve, Evelyn pushed forward, relying on her instincts and inner strength to overcome the labyrinth of deception. Each step brought her closer to the Guardian's approval, and with each passing test, she gained a deeper understanding of the supernatural forces at play. Having successfully completed the Guardian's tests, Evelyn stood before the spectral entity, her determination and respect for the realm's ancient wisdom evident. The Guardian, in turn, acknowledged her sincerity and trustworthiness. With a graceful gesture, the Guardian unveiled the realm's most profound secrets. It revealed the true nature of the cosmic conspiracy, a delicate balance between light and darkness, creation and destruction, order and chaos. Evelyn learned of the existence of supernatural councils that presided over the realm, their members comprising powerful beings from various dimensions. These councils sought to maintain equilibrium in the cosmic order, ensuring that neither darkness nor light gained absolute dominance. Evelyn's newfound knowledge led her to seek out the cosmic guardians, the powerful beings who oversaw the balance of the supernatural realm. These entities, each a custodian of immense power, held the key to understanding the cosmic conspiracy. With guidance from the guardian of the library, Evelyn embarked on a journey to meet the cosmic guardians. Each encounter would test her resolve, as the guardians were enigmatic and ancient beings, their motives and intentions shrouded in mystery. The first guardian she sought was Veritas, the keeper of truth, who resided in a realm of perpetual twilight. There, Evelyn would face the challenge of discerning truth from illusion, a trial that would determine her readiness to uncover the deeper mysteries of the cosmic conspiracy. Evelyn's journey to meet Veritas, the keeper of truth, led her to a realm bathed in perpetual twilight. The Guardian's domain was a place where illusions and reality intertwined, where the boundaries between truth and falsehood were blurred. As Evelyn ventured deeper into this surreal realm, she encountered challenges that tested her perception and discernment. She faced apparitions that mirrored her deepest fears and desires, and she had to rely on her inner strength to distinguish fact from fiction. Veritas observed Evelyn's every move, gauging her ability to navigate the treacherous landscape of truth and illusion. Only those who possessed unwavering determination and an unshakable commitment to unraveling the mysteries of the cosmic conspiracy could earn the Guardian's trust. After enduring a series of trials and tribulations within the realm of Veritas, Evelyn emerged victorious, having proven her ability to discern truth from illusion. The Guardian, impressed by her unwavering determination, revealed the first layer of the cosmic conspiracy. Veritas explained that the cosmic guardians were charged with maintaining the equilibrium between light and darkness, order and chaos, across multiple dimensions. Their duty was to ensure that no single force gained unchecked power, for the consequences of such an imbalance could be catastrophic. Evelyn learned that the enigmatic eclipse acted as a nexus point, allowing those who harnessed its power to influence the balance of the supernatural realm. It was a source of both great potential and great peril, a cosmic anomaly that held the key to shaping the fate of countless worlds. Armed with the knowledge imparted by Veritas, Evelyn continued her quest to seek out the cosmic guardians. Her next destination was the realm of Umbra, where the Council of Shadows presided. This council consisted of enigmatic beings who maintained the delicate balance between light and darkness. The realm of Umbra was a place of perpetual twilight, where shadows danced and secrets thrived. Evelyn's journey would take her deep into the heart of this mysterious realm, where she would encounter the shadowy council and confront challenges that tested her understanding of the cosmic conspiracy. With each step, she drew closer to uncovering the deeper layers of the supernatural realm's enigmatic truth. Evelyn's arrival in the realm of Umbra marked the beginning of her encounter with the Council of Shadows. The council members were ancient beings, their forms shrouded in darkness, and their motives veiled in secrecy. To gain an audience with the council, Evelyn had to prove her worthiness by deciphering a series of cryptic riddles and puzzles. Each challenge led her deeper into the shadowy realm, where the very essence of reality seemed to shift and transform. The council members observed Evelyn's progress, their expressions inscrutable. They sought to test her resolve, for they held the secrets of the cosmic conspiracy that could alter the fate of the supernatural realm and beyond. Evelyn's journey through the realm of Umbra and her encounters with the Council of Shadows had finally led her to the heart of their enigmatic domain. In a chamber shrouded in perpetual twilight, the council members revealed the deeper truths of the cosmic conspiracy. The council explained that the balance between light and darkness, order and chaos, was not a static equilibrium, but a perpetual struggle. Forces beyond human comprehension sought to tip the scales in their favor, and the enigmatic eclipse was the key to their machinations. Evelyn learned that the cosmic guardians, including Veritas and the Council of Shadows, were tasked with safeguarding the enigmatic eclipse and preventing its power from falling into the wrong hands. Those who sought to exploit the eclipse's power for their own gain threatened the very fabric of reality. Armed with newfound knowledge and the guidance of the cosmic guardians, Evelyn stood at a crossroads. She had uncovered the intricate web of the cosmic conspiracy, the delicate balance that governed the supernatural realm, and the cosmic forces that sought to shape the fate of countless worlds. The enigmatic eclipse, with its power to influence the balance between light and darkness, held the key to the realm's destiny. Evelyn had a choice to make, a choice that would determine whether she would protect the balance or expose the cosmic conspiracy to the world. Her journey into the supernatural realm had tested her resolve, challenged her understanding of reality, and unveiled the deepest mysteries of the cosmos. Now, the fate of the supernatural realm and the secrets of the enigmatic eclipse rested in her hands. The house at 13 Willow Street had always been a topic of whispered conversations in the small town of Rivertown. For years, it had stood abandoned, a decrepit and overgrown structure shrouded in mystery and dread. Rumors about the house were rife. Some claimed it was cursed, while others believed it was haunted by vengeful spirits. No one dared to venture near it after dark, and the townsfolk avoided the street altogether. But all of that changed when the Jacobs family arrived in Rivertown. Desperate for a fresh start, they purchased the house on Willow Street, unaware of the horrors that lay within its walls. The Jacobs family, Mark, Sarah, and their two children, Emily and Daniel, had been through a series of misfortunes. They had lost their home, their jobs, and their sense of security in the wake of a financial crisis. When they stumbled upon the house on Willow Street, it seemed like a lifeline. The price was unbelievably low, and it offered the promise of a fresh start. Mark, an optimistic man by nature, saw it as an opportunity to rebuild their lives. As they moved into their new home, the Jacobs family brushed aside the warnings and superstitions of the townsfolk. Little did they know that the house held secrets that would soon engulf them in a nightmare they could never have imagined. The first night in their new home was filled with a sense of unease. Strange sounds echoed through the house, whispers in the walls, distant footsteps, and eerie creaks that seemed to have no origin. Sarah, ever the pragmatic one, attributed the sounds to the old house settling. Mark assured her that they would get used to it, and the children, tired from the move, fell into fitful sleep. But as the days turned into weeks, the whispers in the walls grew more pronounced. Emily claimed she heard voices in her room at night, and Daniel insisted that his toys moved on their own. Mark and Sarah couldn't deny the unsettling atmosphere that pervaded their home, and the sense of dread that had once surrounded the house on Willow Street began to seep into their lives. One day, while exploring the house, Emily discovered a hidden door in the basement. The door, concealed behind a shelf, led to a small windowless room. Its walls were covered in faded, cryptic symbols, and an old dusty mirror hung on one side. The moment Emily stepped into the room, an overwhelming sense of unease washed over her. She felt as if she were being watched by countless unseen eyes. She quickly left, vowing never to return. But the hidden room had awakened something dormant within the house, something malevolent. From that day on, the whispers in the walls grew louder, and the sense of foreboding deepened. As weeks turned into months, the Jacobs family found themselves trapped in a nightmare of unexplained phenomena. Objects moved on their own, footsteps echoed through the empty hallways, and chilling drafts swept through the house even on the warmest days. Emily and Daniel, once full of enthusiasm for their new home, grew withdrawn and fearful. They spoke of shadowy figures that lurked in the corners of their rooms and of voices that whispered terrifying secrets in the dead of night. Mark and Sarah, desperate to protect their children, sought the help of experts and paranormal investigators. But each attempt to unravel the mystery only seemed to provoke the malevolent force that had taken hold of their house. Dr. Elizabeth Chambers, a renowned paranormal investigator, arrived in Rivertown after hearing about the Jacobs family's plight. She had dedicated her life to studying the unexplained, and the house on Willow Street presented an opportunity to uncover the truth. Dr. Chambers was a woman of science, skeptical of supernatural claims. She believed that every paranormal phenomenon had a rational explanation, and her goal was to find it. As she entered the house, she brought with her an array of equipment: EMF meters, infrared cameras, and audio recorders. She was determined to capture evidence that would debunk the haunting claims and bring peace to the Jacobs family. But what she would discover within the house on Willow Street would challenge everything she believed in. Dr. Chambers' investigation of the house on Willow Street began with skepticism, but it quickly evolved into a battle against an unseen malevolence that defied explanation. Her equipment malfunctioned in the presence of the paranormal phenomena, and her rational explanations crumbled in the face of the inexplicable. She witnessed objects levitating, eerie apparitions appearing and disappearing, and heard guttural voices that seemed to originate from nowhere. The malevolent force within the house seemed to taunt her, mocking her attempts to rationalize what she witnessed. Dr. Chambers was forced to confront the possibility that the house on Willow Street was unlike any other haunting she had encountered. In her quest to understand the malevolent force within the house, Dr. Chambers stumbled upon an old journal hidden beneath the floorboards of the attic. The journal belonged to the previous owner of the house, a man named Elijah Blackwood. As she read through the journal, Dr. Chambers uncovered a chilling tale of a man who had become obsessed with the occult. Elijah Blackwood had conducted dark rituals in the hidden room in the basement, seeking to unlock forbidden knowledge and power. The journal described encounters with malevolent entities, cryptic symbols etched on the walls, and the gradual descent into madness. It became clear that the malevolent force that now plagued the Jacobs family was a result of Blackwood's actions. Dr. Chambers realized that to save the Jacobs family, she would need to confront the ancient evil that had been unleashed within the house on Willow Street. Dr. Chambers knew that confronting the malevolent entity that now infested the house on Willow Street would not be an easy task. Armed with the knowledge from Elijah Blackwood's journal, she gathered the Jacobs family and explained the dire nature of their situation. The entity, born from Blackwood's dark rituals and malevolent intentions, had grown in power over the years. It hungered for more than just torment. It sought to consume the souls of those who dared to reside within its domain. Dr. Chambers urged the family to leave the house, but Mark and Sarah were reluctant. They had invested their savings in the property and were determined to make it their home, despite the horrors they faced. Desperate to find a way to banish the malevolent entity and restore peace to the Jacobs family, Dr. Chambers proposed a seance. She believed that by making contact with the entity, they could learn more about its origins and weaknesses. That evening, they gathered in the dimly lit living room. Dr. Chambers, Emily, Daniel, Mark, and Sarah formed a circle, their hands touching, and a sense of unease settled over them. Dr. Chambers chanted incantations, calling out to the entity in a bid to communicate with it. As the seance continued, the atmosphere grew tense. Unseen forces seemed to tug at them, and the temperature in the room dropped. Whispers filled the air, and the malevolent entity made its presence known. Through Emily, the entity began to speak. It revealed itself as a being of darkness, born from the depths of despair and hatred. It recounted the horrors it had witnessed, the pain it had endured, and the insatiable hunger that drove it. The entity's voice was a chilling blend of agony and malice, and it taunted the family with its knowledge of their deepest fears and insecurities. It claimed to have been awakened by their presence and vowed to consume their souls. Dr. Chambers, undeterred by the entity's malevolence, continued to question it, determined to find a way to weaken its grip on the family. She knew that uncovering its vulnerabilities would be their only hope. As the seance continued, the entity inadvertently revealed its vulnerability. It confessed that it drew power from the negative emotions of those it tormented, the fear, anger, and despair that filled the house. Dr. Chambers saw an opportunity to weaken the entity. She urged the Jacobs family to confront their own fears and negative emotions, to resist the entity's attempts to sow discord among them. Over the following days, the family embarked on a journey of self-reflection and reconciliation. They shared their deepest fears and regrets, seeking to mend the rifts that had formed between them. As they faced their own demons, the entity's hold on them began to wane, and they sensed a glimmer of hope that they could free themselves from its malevolent grasp. With the entity's vulnerability exposed, Dr. Chambers devised a plan to perform a powerful exorcism that would banish it from the house on Willow Street once and for all. She gathered the necessary materials, including ancient symbols and protective talismans. The night of the exorcism arrived. The family, strengthened by their newfound unity, joined Dr. Chambers in the living room. Candles flickered, and the air was heavy with tension as the ritual began. Dr. Chambers chanted incantations and drew symbols on the walls with a mixture of salt and holy water. As she invoked the forces of light and protection, the entity unleashed its fury. The room trembled, objects flew through the air, and the entity's howls of rage reverberated. But the Jacobs family stood strong, their love and determination acting as a shield against the malevolent force. They held hands and repeated the words of the ritual, their voices growing stronger with each utterance. As the ritual reached its climax, a blinding light filled the room, forcing the entity to retreat. It shrieked in agony, its form writhing and dissipating like smoke in the wind. With a final incantation, Dr. Chambers sealed the entity within a protective barrier. The malevolent force raged against its confines, but it was powerless to break free. The room fell silent, and a sense of peace settled over the house on Willow Street. The entity's presence had been banished, and the Jacobs family had emerged victorious. In the aftermath of the exorcism, the Jacobs family found themselves transformed. The house on Willow Street, once a place of torment, became a sanctuary of love and healing. Emily and Daniel's smiles returned, and their laughter echoed through the hallways. Mark and Sarah, no longer burdened by fear and despair, grew closer as a couple. The town of Rivertown, once wary of the house, watched in amazement as the family thrived. Dr. Chambers, satisfied that her work was done, bid farewell to the Jacobs family. She knew that the malevolent entity had been banished, but she also understood the importance of remaining vigilant. As the Jacobs family embraced their new beginning, they knew that the horrors of the house on Willow Street were behind them, but they would forever carry the lessons they had learned: the strength of love, the power of unity, and the resilience of the human spirit. Although the malevolent entity had been banished, the Jacobs family couldn't escape the lingering shadows of their past. The house on Willow Street held memories of terror that haunted their dreams and lingered in the corners of their minds. Mark and Sarah decided to renovate the house, hoping that a fresh start would help them leave the past behind. They painted over the walls with cheerful colors and replaced the creaking floorboards, but the memories still lurked. Emily and Daniel had their own share of lingering fears. They continued to have nightmares of the malevolent entity, and they couldn't forget the chilling voices and apparitions they had witnessed. Therapy helped, but the scars ran deep. One day, as Mark was working on renovations in the basement, he uncovered the hidden room that Emily had discovered months ago. The symbols on the walls had faded, but the malevolent energy still hung in the air. Curiosity got the better of Mark, and he decided to investigate the room further. As he entered, the temperature dropped, and he felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The room seemed darker, as if the shadows themselves clung to the walls. Mark quickly left the room, sealing it shut once more. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had missed something, that the malevolent entity might not have been completely banished. Mark's discovery of the hidden room filled him with unease. He decided to reach out to Dr. Chambers, the paranormal investigator who had helped them banish the entity. She agreed to return to Willow Street to investigate the room. Upon her arrival, Dr. Chambers could sense the lingering malevolent energy in the hidden room. She explained to the family that the entity might have left a residual presence behind, a remnant of its dark influence. Together, they conducted a thorough investigation of the room, using specialized equipment to detect any paranormal activity. What they discovered sent shivers down their spines. Elijah Blackwood's journal, which had been missing from the attic. Dr. Chambers examined the journal with a growing sense of unease. It contained new entries that detailed Blackwood's attempts to summon the malevolent entity back into the house, even after his initial encounters with it. Blackwood's obsession with dark rituals and forbidden knowledge had led him to believe that he could harness the entity's power for his own gain. He had performed a series of sinister ceremonies in the hidden room, attempting to re-establish a connection to the malevolent force. As they read through the journal, the realization struck: they might not have banished the entity after all. It seemed to have left a doorway open, a tether to the house, and it could return with a vengeance. In the days that followed the discovery of Blackwood's journal, ominous signs began to manifest in the house on Willow Street. Shadows moved in the corners of rooms, and the temperature dropped inexplicably. Emily and Daniel's nightmares returned with a vengeance, and they spoke of a presence in the house, watching them, whispering dreadful secrets. Mark and Sarah couldn't ignore the chilling events unfolding around them. Dr. Chambers, now certain that the malevolent entity was attempting to return, urged the family to leave the house once more. But the Jacobs family, unwilling to abandon their newfound hope and sense of home, were determined to confront the malevolent force head-on. In a desperate attempt to communicate with the malevolent entity and learn its intentions, Dr. Chambers suggested another seance. They hoped to uncover the entity's weakness and find a way to seal the doorway it had left behind. The atmosphere in the living room was heavy with tension as they formed a circle once more. Dr. Chambers chanted the incantations, calling out to the entity, while Mark, Sarah, Emily, and Daniel held hands. The seance began much like the previous one, with strange sounds and eerie whispers filling the room. But this time, the entity's presence was stronger, and it seemed more determined than ever to re-enter their lives. As the seance reached its peak, a bone-chilling wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles and plunging them into darkness. The entity's malevolent laughter echoed through the house, sending shivers down their spines. Then the room was bathed in an eerie bluish light. The entity manifested itself, its form a grotesque and shifting mass of shadows. It taunted them with its presence, promising to torment them once more. Desperation and fear washed over the Jacobs family, but they refused to yield to the entity's malevolence. They repeated the incantations from the exorcism, determined to seal the doorway and banish the entity once and for all. A battle of wills unfolded in the darkened living room. The Jacobs family, guided by Dr. Chambers, chanted the incantations, their voices growing stronger with each repetition. They called upon the forces of light and protection to aid them in their struggle. The malevolent entity fought back with all its might, attempting to disrupt the incantations and break their resolve. Objects flew through the air, and the room shook with its fury. In the midst of the chaos, Emily and Daniel, empowered by their love for their family, joined the incantations. Their voices, filled with determination, helped tip the balance in their favor. As the battle of wills raged on, the malevolent entity weakened. Its form flickered and waned, and it let out a final, ear-piercing scream before dissipating into nothingness. With a final incantation, Dr. Chambers sealed the doorway that the entity had left behind. The room fell silent, and the temperature returned to normal. The malevolent force had been banished once more. Exhausted but victorious, the Jacobs family and Dr. Chambers knew that they had faced the malevolent entity and emerged triumphant. The house on Willow Street, now cleansed of its darkness, held the promise of a brighter future. In the days that followed the sealing of the doorway, the Jacobs family found peace once more. The nightmares ceased, and the eerie phenomena that had plagued them gradually faded away. With the support of Dr. Chambers, the family embarked on a journey of healing. Therapy and counseling helped them cope with the trauma they had endured, and they grew closer as a family. The town of Rivertown, having witnessed the Jacobs family's resilience, welcomed them with open arms. The house on Willow Street, no longer a place of dread, became a symbol of hope and redemption. With the malevolent entity banished once more, life in the house on Willow Street slowly returned to normalcy. The Jacobs family, now stronger than ever, settled into their daily routines and tried to put the nightmares of the past behind them. Yet, the lingering mysteries of the unnerving new house refused to fade away entirely. Emily and Daniel, despite their newfound sense of security, couldn't shake the memories of the malevolent entity and the horrors they had witnessed. Mark and Sarah, while grateful for the peace they now enjoyed, wondered about the true nature of the malevolent force and what had driven Elijah Blackwood to summon it. Dr. Chambers, too, couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to uncover. Driven by their lingering curiosity and a desire to prevent anyone else from falling victim to the malevolent entity, the Jacobs family decided to delve deeper into the history of the house on Willow Street. They combed through old records, interviewed longtime residents of Rivertown, and visited the local library to uncover any information about the previous owners of the house. The more they discovered, the darker the secrets of the house became. They learned of other families who had lived in the house briefly, only to flee in terror. Stories of mysterious disappearances and unexplained deaths seemed to follow the house through the decades, confirming its reputation as a place of darkness. As the Jacobs family pieced together the history of the unnerving new house, they uncovered a series of disturbing events. Elijah Blackwood, the man who had performed dark rituals in the hidden room, was not the first owner to dabble in the occult. Previous owners had also tried to harness the supernatural forces within the house. It was said that the house had been built on ancient Native American burial grounds, and that the land itself held a dark and vengeful energy. Each owner had faced malevolent forces of their own, but none had succeeded in fully banishing them. The house seemed to feed on the darkness that resided in the hearts of those who dwelled within its walls. The Jacobs family's research led them to a chilling revelation. Elijah Blackwood had left behind unfinished business. His journal contained cryptic references to a ritual that could potentially release the malevolent entity once more. Fearing that someone else might stumble upon the journal and attempt the ritual, the family resolved to complete the ritual themselves. They believed that by doing so, they could permanently seal the malevolent entity's doorway and put an end to the house's dark history. Guided by Dr. Chambers' expertise in the paranormal, they gathered the necessary materials and prepared for the ritual, hoping that it would bring closure to the unnerving new house. On a moonless night, the Jacobs family, accompanied by Dr. Chambers, gathered in the hidden room in the basement. Candles flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls covered in cryptic symbols. The ritual began with a series of incantations and offerings meant to appease and seal the malevolent entity. The air grew thick with tension as the family chanted in unison, their voices echoing through the dimly lit chamber. As they reached the climax of the ritual, the room seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy. The temperature dropped, and the walls themselves seemed to pulse with a malevolent presence. In the midst of the ritual, The malevolent entity manifested once more powerful and furious than ever before. It howled with rage, determined to resist the family's efforts to seal its doorway. The room became a battleground of supernatural forces. Objects flew through the air, and the walls shook as the entity fought to break free from its confinement. Dr. Chambers and the Jacobs family held fast, their determination unwavering. The ritual reached its climax, and with a final incantation, they channeled their collective willpower to seal the doorway once and for all. The malevolent entity shrieked in defeat as it was forced back into the shadows. With the ritual completed, the unnerving new house seemed to sigh in relief. The malevolent entity's presence lifted, and the dark energy that had plagued the house for decades began to dissipate. As the days passed, the house underwent a transformation. The atmosphere lightened, and the oppressive shadows receded. No longer a place of dread, the unnerving new house began to exude a sense of warmth and serenity. The Jacobs family and Dr. Chambers felt a profound sense of closure. They believed that, at long last, the house could be redeemed from its dark past. Life in the unnerving new house continued to improve. Emily and Daniel grew into happy, well-adjusted children, free from the nightmares that had haunted them. Mark and Sarah found solace in their newfound sense of security and peace. The town of Rivertown, once wary of the house, now embraced it as a symbol of resilience and redemption. The Jacobs family's journey had transformed the house from a place of darkness into a beacon of hope. Dr. Chambers, satisfied that her work was complete, bid farewell to the family, confident that the malevolent entity had been vanquished for good. She knew that the Jacobs family's courage and determination had brought an end to the house's dark history. As the years passed, the unnerving new house became a beloved fixture of Rivertown. It was no longer known for its dark past, but for the family who had faced its horrors and triumphed. Mark and Sarah, now middle-aged, had turned the house into a sanctuary for those in need. It became a place of healing and support for families who had experienced trauma and loss. Emily and Daniel, inspired by their own experiences, pursued careers in psychology and the paranormal, respectively. They dedicated their lives to helping others confront and overcome their fears. The story of the unnerving new house came to an end, not as a tale of darkness and despair, but as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It stood as a reminder that even in the face of malevolent forces and unspeakable horrors, love, unity, and determination could triumph. The house on Willow Street remained a symbol of redemption, a place where nightmares had turned into dreams, and where a family had forged an unbreakable bond. The legacy of the Jacobs family lived on, a beacon of hope for all who encountered the unnerving new house.